Hi, welcome to Strong as You Think. Today, I want to talk about how telling our story with emotional honesty can help us, can help heal us. See, what happens is that many times in our lives, we have a story, we have things that have happened to us in the past, and we have feelings, we have emotions about those circumstances, about those things that have gone on in our lives. And many times, people around us or even ourselves have judgments on us because of those emotions that we might have. We might tell ourselves we overreacted. We might tell ourselves that doesn't make sense. It's not a big deal. It happened a long time ago. Why are you still thinking about it? And so many times we kind of downplay our emotions, our feelings about what happened in situations in our lives. So, and then we wonder why something's kind of going on under the surface, or why when something happens that we keep thinking about something that happened in the past, and we have this feeling that may seem overreactive in another situation. And this comes because we are having judgment on ourselves. Sometimes we judge ourselves because someone else judged us first, right? They've said, don't be such a baby. Don't, why are you overreacting? It's not a big deal. Or we're just saying that to ourselves. We want to be tough. We want to see ourselves as strong and capable. And so we don't want to have those feelings that might contradict that idea of ourselves. The truth is that being honest may actually allow us to process it and not dwell on it. Because sometimes we think, well, if we let that in and we keep going over and over it, that we are just going to cause ourselves to think about it and overreact more. So that could happen, but that happens when we keep talking about it and we keep overreacting, or we keep telling that story with that judgment on it over and over again. And then we kind of are having this argument with ourselves. But the reality is oftentimes when we tell that story with curiosity instead of judgment, when we're just allowing ourselves to have those feelings, allowing whatever comes up, allowing whatever to recognize whatever came up in the past, that acknowledging that, it's more likely to let it go, because it keeps coming back because we didn't give those emotions their due. And we also sometimes have those feelings when there's other people involved in a situation, and we don't want to be thinking badly and making judgments on somebody else. Okay. Sometimes that's a part of the situation, is we have to acknowledge that the feelings that we had do involve judgments on somebody else sometimes. But when we can acknowledge it and say, that makes sense at the time, at the information I had, at the perspective I was viewing things from, all of those things, those emotions and those judgments made sense. And we can choose to look at it differently after, but that is valid after we acknowledge what happened in the past. We can't change the feelings that we had in the past. We have to process them. We have to acknowledge them and work through them. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. Sometimes it might take a little more time than others, but allowing ourselves to feel that and acknowledging ourselves to understand compassionately without judgment on ourselves allows that to move through allows us to open up our perspective. The curiosity's there. We can think about our younger self, our previous self, and say, that must have been really hard for you, and all those things. But when we tell our story with emotional honesty, and so it's less important that we have all the details of the situation correct than that we're acknowledging how we felt. Sometimes we feel a certain way because we actually saw the situation inaccurately, okay? But we have to acknowledge the feelings that came from seeing it inaccurately. This is looking at it with emotional honesty, whereas different from just factually. Because we respond from the way we saw it at the time. Okay. Even if it wasn't true, if we can look back later and say, oh, there was something I didn't know, I was looking at it from a different perspective, that's fine. But we still have to acknowledge the person we were and how we saw it at the time. And as we do that with compassion, not judgment, not saying, oh, dummy, you didn't know it all right, so stop your complaining, or, it's not, that doesn't do any good. It's like, oh, Amy, oh, you young self that didn't understand this, that must have been really hard for you. I can see why you were angry at that. I can see why your feelings were hurt when you saw it this way. And as you allow that to happen and allow that story, that of emotion and the emotions of it to come out, then you will find some more freedom from that. And so that's why telling our stories is important. We can do that through journaling. We can do that through talking to someone that we trust. Sometimes it may even just be through like a more of a meditative thinking about it way, but you have to kind of see what's going to work for you. And I think that this is a part of, like, before we had such good mental health, I think that there were some people who were able to take care of their mental health by telling the stories. There's a cleansing thing about telling the stories. There's now they have narrative therapy, which is, encapsulates this. But if you have something that keeps coming up for you, then I would encourage you to go back. And it's not just going over the story. And I think sometimes that's where we get stuck, because as we go over the story again and again, sometimes we get stuck because we're not taking from the story what we need to. What we need to take from it is, how did we feel, and have the compassion on it and move through that. And that's why some people get really stuck in just going back and telling their story. It doesn't work. It's because we have to accept and compassionately take care of that self that was in that story with emotional honesty, have compassion on those emotions. As we do that, that's where the story has more powerful than just the telling of it. So think about those stories in your past that keep kind of knocking at your door, that keep coming back, and consider the emotional honesty component and be able to be a good listener to you. And if it's something you want help with, I have done this with clients, and I can work with you on that. Feel free to visit my website to find out how to get in touch with me. It's amyelkinscoaching.com. All right. Thank you. Bye.